lecture portion of auditory and vestibular systems, and we have moved superiorly. And the first question, of course, is where are we? This one's kind of tricky, so I'm just going to tell you. Here's a last little bit of the pyramids, but here's the beginning of pontine nuclei. So we're actually right at this medulla pons border. And we're going to need to find the medial lemniscus, the anterolateral system, the descending nucleus and tract of the trigeminal system, VTT. We're not actually going to locate the auditory fibers going through this section, but they do go through this section, but they're not distinct, so we're not going to circle them. And there's still, I'm showing this in particular because there's the rest of the vestibular nuclear complex. So that's shown right up in here. The salt and pepper nucleus, which is the lateral vestibular nucleus, is now gone. We're too far superior for that. But there's a new one, the superior vestibular nucleus, and we'll just refer to this as the vestibular nuclear complex. Okay, so let's start labeling these on your handouts. Your medial lemniscus is right there, headless homunculus standing on the pyramid, just starting to do those splits as we're just getting into the pons. We have the anterolateral system still in about the same location as we had before. We have the descending nucleus and tract of the trigeminal system, so slow somatosensory information from the head, and that these higher order neurons, of course, are sending their axons across the midline to then ascend in VTT. So the nucleus and the tract is slow somatosensory coming from the ipsilateral head, because that's the place where those primary sensory afferents are making their first synapse. Then they cross the midline and run in VTT. So at that point, the information is coming from the contralateral side of the head. So that's all review. We still have vestibular nuclei here. They look a little bit different, so I wanted to point it out. These are still getting information. Those are primary sensory afferents making their first synapse in a prethalamic relay nucleus, the vestibular nuclei, so that information is coming from the ipsilateral vestibular apparatus. And there's just a teeny tiny bit of the solitary nucleus and tract left on this section. I would never tag it on this section. It's very indistinct here. And then we'll finish this one up with our middle cerebellar peduncle, superior cerebellar peduncle, and inferior cerebellar peduncles. So the inferior one is still shown up here on our board, and that's still bringing that proprioceptive information from the upper and the lower body and taking it to the cerebellum. Okay, but now you can also see the middle cerebellar peduncle as well as the superior cerebellar peduncle. All right, let's go ahead and move superiorly. And our first question, as always, is going to be, where are we? Okay, so we're only going to really pay attention to the posterior portion of this section because it's at an angle. So on the anterior portion, these are still pontine nuclei here. However, we have this nice distinct structure, which is one of our landmarks for an area of the brainstem, and you should be able to tell me what level of the brainstem are we located in. Pause if you need to. This is one of the colliculi, so therefore we're in the midbrain, and it's got this nice round shape, sort of goblet shaped, and here's sort of, some people say it looks sort of like a goblet with a stem, and this is the inferior colliculus. Therefore we're in the inferior portions of the midbrain. So if we go to our pathways diagram, and we can see, what do we need to find? Well, of course, as usual, we've got to find our medial lemniscus, our anterolateral system. We're now in the midbrain, so yes, we have to find VTT, as well as the mesencephalic nucleus and tract of the trigeminal system. And here's one nice thing. One of the nuclei you have to find for the auditory system, you already know it because it's one of your landmarks for the inferior regions of the midbrain. And taste does get through here, but we're not going to follow it. Okay, so let's start identifying some of these structures. And we have our medial lemniscus. That headless homunculus has now done its complete splits. The legs are found laterally. The shoulders are found medially. We have our anterolateral system located right next to the medial lemniscus at this point. And then we have VTT, is sort of this furry looking part on top of the medial lemniscus, posterior to the medial lemniscus. And what is running in VTT at this level? We're now in the midbrain. Does this have slow somatosensory information in it? Pause if you need to. Yes, it does. Does it have fast somatosensory information in it? Pause if you need to. Yes, it does. We are now superior to the place where the trigeminal nerve comes in and superior to the principal nucleus of 5. So both fast somatosensory and slow somatosensory information are coming up through these higher order neurons through the VTT. So for VTT, you have to know where you are to know what's in it. And we're now at a level where fast somatosensory information from the head is also present in VTT, and therefore we are no longer seeing the descending nucleus and tract of the trigeminal system, of course, because that was all found inferior to the section where we are now. Okay, we do, however, have our mesencephalic nucleus of 5. And so I didn't leave myself enough room. We're just going to squeeze it in here. Mesencephalic nucleus of the trigeminal system. Remember, these are our oddballs. These are the cell bodies of primary sensory afferents, which are going to go and send their axons down, back down to the principal nucleus of 5 to make their first synapse, and then this higher order neuron sends its axon across and up through VTT. So because these are the cell bodies of primary sensory afferents, do primary sensory afferents ever cross the midline? No, they do not. So that is bringing information in from the ipsilateral head. So ipsilateral for mesencephalic nucleus, but contralateral for VTT. Okay, so that is for all of our somatosensory information getting through this section. Now what else do we have on here? Well, we have some structures that are important for the auditory system. So we have 6A. Actually, no, let's make that 6B. This will be 6A, and that will be 6B. And what we have at this level is our lateral lemniscus, which is 6A. So these are axons of higher order auditory fibers making their next synapse in the inferior colliculus, right here in the inferior regions of the midbrain. Okay, so let's finish that up. We have 6A is our lateral lemniscus making its synapse in the inferior colliculus. Alrighty, so that concludes our second portion of the auditory vestibular lectures. Please use your pathways diagram and the information I've just given you, as well as the posted notes, to review all of the structures and information on sections 615 and 624. After you've done that, please come back